I feel very familiar with the term revitalization, but now I'm hearing the word renew. What's the difference?
Renew is the overarching concept of helping existing churches. You might say all churches need some level of spiritual renewal. Just like every Christian every day needs to have spiritual renewal, churches are the same way. We're always trying to be better, be more mature, grow up in our maturity in Christ as a corporate body. And so that's what the renewal concept is about. But as you say, we need this, then when you dig a little deeper and you say, well, in your particular church, what do you need? Then there's categories of pathways of renewal. And in those pathways, they have things that we call revitalization. And that would mean that we assess where your church is and you need X, Y, and Z. And a church may say, yeah, we can do that. And we provide resources, encouragement, coaching, whatever they might need for that. Some may need to revitalize and they need some extra help, maybe some outside help. Yeah. Maybe a partner comes in, another church comes alongside them. And so that would be a pathway that includes a partner. And then there's churches that need to replant. That's where you kind of need new leadership, new bylaws, and it's really starting a whole new chapter, maybe even bringing a church planter in and building upon that legacy church a whole new future. And then there's some other options, but there's a whole lot of options that we have. That's why we needed to organize it, systematize it, and get it out there in a way that we can really help every church that calls us.
No matter where they are.
No matter where they are. There's so many options that you can't just, this is not a program. This is not like some box of materials we ship you in the mail and say it's a one size fits all. No, this is about relationships.
Yeah.
This is where the whole better together concept, this is where the rubber hits the road. Because we're going to come alongside. We have found that, look, the state convention can't revitalize churches. Associations don't revitalize churches. Churches revitalize churches. We're helping churches work together, partner together. Pastors are working together. And we're coming alongside, helping make that happen.
Welcome to the GC Collective podcast, brought to you by the California Southern Baptist Convention. From local missions to global impact, we explore the vision, passion, and heart behind our collective movement in California and around the world. Where better together isn't just a motto, it's how we maximize our impact in fulfilling the Great Commission.
Hello, California Southern Baptist family. Welcome back to the GC Collective podcast. I'm here with Jason Robertson. Glad to have
everyone.
You here. No Pete today.
No Pete.
But we're talking about revitalization and all the other renews rewords that you have in your ministry. So
we have a lot.
We do.
Revitalization, renew, replant, repurpose, replicate.
I know. We have a special guest. Introduce.
Well, we have here with us today Dr. Jimbo Stewart. This brother, he is an expert. He don't like to be called an expert, but he's got his doctorate in revitalization. Wow. And we've been using him as a great resource trainer across the state of California.
So welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Jimbo, huh?
My guess is I'm the first and last Dr. Jimbo you'll ever have on this podcast.
Are those common where you're from?
Dr. Jimbos are not common anywhere.
Okay.
No, but so I grew up in South Mississippi, and so Jimbo is not necessarily as rare of a word in the South as it is in California. I've joked all across the state of California that, hey, next up is Jimbo, or here comes Jimbo. It's probably only an encouraging phrase in a few scenarios. And one of those maybe is you're stuck in the middle of the woods and you need somebody with a 4-wheel drive vehicle and a winch that can pull you out of the mud, or you have a brisket and you don't know how to smoke a brisket and do barbecue.
Yeah.
And yes, I do have both of those skills and glad to help if you find yourself in either of those scenarios, especially the brisket one.
Your parents did you right then. Now, tell us about where you work. Like, Where do you come from?
Yeah, I'm the Associate Director of the North American Mission Board Replant team. So we're a little-known team at the North American Mission Board that is focused primarily on one problem, is that in Southern Baptist life, we close 900 to 1,000 churches on average every year. And so over 10 years ago, this question really rang in the leadership, NAM, of we got to do something about that, because even if we keep planting, we're never going to catch up.
Right.
And so a team through Mark Clifton started to slowly develop over the last 10 to 15 years. And now I have the great pleasure of getting to lead and help manage that team.
Yeah, Mark Clifton, he's a very well-known name in the world of revitalization.
Yeah.
So you work with him.
Yes, I work right there with Mark, and we get to do this stuff all across the country, and it's a great joy.
Awesome. He's writing a series for us, so make sure you're subscribed to This Week at CSBC to catch all of those articles.
Absolutely.
Before we get to today's topic, Jason, we want to celebrate some stuff that's happening in the state, and you've been working on some things bubbling underneath the surface.
Yes, Jimbo and his partner Brandon Moore, they both were out here together. Both of those guys work in that department at NAM. They were out here with their wives, really going across the state with me. We started down in San Diego. We were in Ontario and in Fresno doing Renew conferences, where we bring churches together. Some churches that want to help other churches, and then there's churches that need help. We try to get them into the same room and encourage all of them, show them how they can partner together. But also, for the last couple of days, we've been at Gateway Seminary, where we hosted our second, what we call invention team, where we are inventing our statewide Renew network. It's called Renew California. This was birthed out of those listening sessions that we had a year ago with Pete Ramirez as we traveled with his staff across the state. And one of the common questions that we heard, our request was, we need help from the state level, or some type of systematized way to come together and help churches that need to revitalize, that need to be renewed, need to be replanted. And so we've been working on that. We put together a team of people, about 40 pastors, church leaders, men and women, different ethnicities, all came together with all their backgrounds and experiences. DOMs were in the room, and we called it an invention team. And we've met twice this year inventing that Renew network. And so that just happened over the last couple of days with Jimbo, and we're making great progress. We're looking at rolling out, at least announcing and showing the state at our state convention what we have so far. So it's sort of what you might consider a soft launch, where we're just basically informing the state that we heard you, and this is what we've been working on, and this is what's coming. And it gives the early adopters a chance to get on board with what we're doing, because we think it's going to make a great difference in fulfilling that vision that our executive director has of reaching 2% of the state with the gospel. And you know, in order to reach that 2%, we've got to plant about 500 churches in the next 10 years. But we also got to make sure that our existing churches are spiritually and organizationally healthy. And so that's the lane that I'm in. We're Jimbo and I are building this team, inventing this network, so that we can make sure that our churches that are already in existence are renewed spiritually, and find that renewed vigoration and strength, and even organizational health to keep going forward.
So I got to kind of be a fly on the wall in some of these invention meetings, and you're traveling all around the nation, helping different states kind of figure this out. And I know enough to know that the pastor is sort of the gatekeeper to church growth, church health, all of these things, revitalization. Share with us a little bit about, the pastor mindset as they go into the process of renewal in their congregation. What should our pastors, who are mostly our listeners, be thinking about right now as they consider do we need something like this?
Yeah, absolutely. You think about, people often say, so goes the leader, so goes the organization.
Right.
It's often the case as well with church revitalization, church renewal, and church in general. If you think about Ephesians 4:11 through 16, where the Apostle Paul tells the Ephesian church that he has given the gifts of leaders to the church, of the apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, teacher, but he's given them a specific task, and it's to equip the saints to do the work of ministry. Mm-hmm. And it's really easy as a pastor to accidentally fall into I've got to be the hero, I've got to do all the work of ministry. It's all on my shoulders based on my personality and my giftings and how dynamic can I be and how flashy can this be. When in reality, what the Bible has called us to is a meekness of wisdom, a humility in leadership while we're pursuing God's wisdom for the things that he's given us to lead and steward well, to equip the saints for the work of ministry so they will build each other up into maturity. And largely, it's more about maturity than the easiest to measure metrics. And that's one of the paradigm shifts I think we have to think about, because it's so easy to just go, how many people are there? How many baptisms? What's the budget?
Right.
And we shouldn't ignore those numbers. Those are things that we should know, we should be aware of, but they just don't tell the whole story. Mm-hmm. So a big rally cry of our team is that Jesus has a plan for every church. And ultimately, it's our job as under shepherds to figure out, what is Jesus' plan for this church, and how do I be obedient to that?
Wow. And so that, you said meekness?
The meekness of wisdom. So in the ESV, you'll find that in James chapter 3, I think verse 12, where it talks about in some translations, it says the humility that comes from wisdom. But it's really become a thing I've tried to focus on in my own life and try to impart to others, is the meekness of wisdom.
Interesting. And so, Jason, as you're hearing from our churches, is that going to be part of the training, or do our pastors already have a heart in that, predisposed that way? Or
Well, all the pastors just heard you ask that question, and they all said, yes, I absolutely have tons of meekness and humility.
Excellent.
Yes, we excel in that. What are you talking about?
Humble and proud of it.
Yes. But yes, I can tell you, Sarah, one of the keys to renewal is beginning with spiritual renewal. Mm-hmm. It's something we're emphasizing over and over, is that none of this will happen until you start with your own heart. And it starts with the pastor's heart too. And that's why we're targeting the pastors in some of the conferences that we're doing and events that we're doing. And in fact, it's even beyond my own department here at the CSBC and Church Matters. We're syncing up with Francis in these prayer conferences and summits that he's doing, the prayer cohorts that we're putting together. All of this is designed. It's not by accident. It's all designed because we know that the only way we're going to reach this world with the gospel, the only way we're going to reach our state, with the Great Commission, is we've got to start with letting that gospel again be renewed in our own hearts, and focusing on spiritual renewal in the heart of these pastors. So we've got great pastors across our state.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, every one of them will say to you, I need this. I need to start with me. So we're finding ways to make that happen.
Yeah, and I feel like, this program that you guys are developing, you said the soft launch is coming in October, but there seems to me there's a lot that has to be done, with the pastor first and foremost. I think we learned that during Year of Prayer. A lot of our resources are geared for the pastor as they lead their church. So you're saying they don't learn all of this renewal and how to do it all out of seminary. They just come out equipped to just have healthy churches all the time from beginning to end?
Yeah. I mean, the hard reality is, coming out of seminary, your first church will be a revitalization. You're not going to get hired to pastor a healthy church as your first church. And this spiritual renewal before strategic renewal piece is so important, because Tom Rainer says, I think it's 85% of all church revitalization efforts fail. And I'm convinced it's because we go after tactics and strategies first, and we get pushback against that change because the people's hearts and minds aren't ready. And so we have to get their hearts and minds ready and focused on the mission and purpose that God has given us over our own preference and the way that we want to do things, have a missionary mindset, and really pursue Jesus' plan for that church. And as people's hearts and minds get warmed and ready for that, they won't push back against the change as much. They'll embrace it. They'll participate and be a part of seeing the change happen. But we so often want that easy silver bullet fix.
Yeah.
You know, let me get a better website and let me get, all these things, and we should do that. But that's not in and of itself enough to revitalize a church.
I thought about Jimbo. We were talking about the way we used to plant churches and go about church growth was very homogenous. You focused on, this is my target group, and you basically would build strategies to reach that target group. And then your church became filled with people like that, right? And then the community changed, and all of a sudden your church became a little less relevant in the community. So you plateaued. Now you're declining, and you're in trouble. And what we're doing in our generation is learning from that. There was some good things about it, but it missed the mark. We can see that now. And instead of targeting so much on here's the kind of people we want to reach, it's more about here's the kind of disciples we want to make.
Yeah, that's so important because to be fair, when the homogeneous unit principle came about, most neighborhoods were homogeneous and stayed homogeneous. And so it made sense to go, we're going to reach that neighborhood. Who lives in that neighborhood? This is the type of person that lives in that neighborhood. Let's plant a church that reaches that type of person. What they didn't anticipate was the socio-demographic changes that were coming for our country, where now neighborhoods shift and they just don't stay the same.
Yeah.
And so now the address of your church is not an accident, but it's no longer surrounded by the same people that you planted the church for. And so you have to now think not what are the type of people we're reaching, but what are the type of disciple that we're making, and how do we be missionaries in this context as it continues to shift.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny. We have a church here in the Central Valley that's a Spanish language church, and they have a little English service, which you don't often think about it going that way, right? But it's a Spanish language church, and it was in a Spanish language community, but it has now become Hmong as time has gone by. And so now their mission field is the Hmong people as a Spanish language church with a little English congregation that meets there as well. Yeah,
that's what we're seeing all across the country is those types of neighborhood shifts where you have to figure out then, like, what are we going to do about that? How are we going to rethink what it means to be a church for this community, even though that looks entirely different now? Yeah.
And Jason, you said something that just stuck with me, where you said, these used to be the metrics, but now it's not the number of people or what they look like, but how are they growing?
Yes.
Which is very hard to measure.
It is hard to measure, but we've got some really good resources and even people resources that have learned what we're talking about. And we're guys like Jimbo and Brandon and many others that we're bringing in. This group we call Replicate, that we're doing some Replicate events across the state. It's really all about that. When our audience hears this podcast, I hope that some of these names and ministries will resonate in their memory, because we're going to be bringing, if this conversation is sparking a thought in your head saying, I agree with that, now what? Yeah, hang with us. We're all saying that. And we're bringing the now what to you. We're developing that because we've got to do it. And I'm finding that across the state, our pastors are into this. They're not resistant to it. We've got a lot of missionary-minded pastors. And so what they've needed is the right kind of resources. We were dealing with resources that were outdated and don't work and irrelevant, but there's a lot of good stuff coming, and good people like Jimbo and his team that have gone out. We live in a different age now where Man, these guys are flying all over the country and taking everything they're learning and uploading it to websites and podcasts.
Yeah.
And we can all tune into that stuff and learn together and grow together. And we're seeing a great movement across the state and the nation.
Yeah. And so you talked about the listening sessions and how those are actually coming back. We're going to do the tour again here this summer.
Right
so
on.
Be looking for those dates. But the thing we heard, and you referenced it, is, the leadership bench. Every single region that we went to said the same thing. And so this is going to answer some of those questions.
Well, I hope so, yes, because, one of the reasons we don't have a bench, there's many reasons, but a lot of the people we were training, a lot of our disciples started moving east.
Right.
Because of economic issues. And so, all of a sudden some pastors they'd been doing the work, but then all of a sudden they just lost them. Like overnight, it felt like, man, my future leaders are all gone. And then there has been a lack of men that have answered the call to be pastors. And I chose my words carefully there. I don't think there's been a lack of call. I think there's been a lack of answering the call. And I think that as God's calling out our next leaders, and they're afraid to answer that call because it is a call to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And when you're in California, you're on a mission field, and you answer that call immediately. You're never going to make as much as your peers.
I know.
Your life is. Jimbo says it all the time. Ministry is meant to be hard. So you're answering a call for a difficult life. It's going to be difficult on your marriage and on your children.
Yeah.
And we've been honest about that for a good generation or two. And I guess people heard us because we've scared them to death, So I think we need to do some work there to say, okay, we've been honest about the reality, but now what can we do to help in that situation?
Yeah.
Because we do need to be calling, we do need the people that are being called by God to answer that call, the people right here in the state of California that God's calling. And I believe He's calling them.
Yeah.
We need them to answer it. But I want us to say, what can we do to help them answer that?
Yeah. So speaking about the metrics, you and I were talking earlier, Jimbo, and you used the term, I wrote it down, change the finish line, that's got to be part of the work. Flesh that out a little bit for our listeners.
Yeah, I think when we think the finish line is, 20% more than we had last year, then whatever you are aiming at is going to determine how you go about getting there. And in reality, what we're going to be held account to is not what's on your ACP report, although please fill that out.
Please fill that out.
It's good for research, and it's good for letting us know what's going on. But that's ultimately, when you stand before the Lord one day, I don't think He's pulling out your ACP report. I think it has more to do with...
Sorry, Steve Foss.
I'm questioning your Southern Baptist-ness right now.
I think in reality it's going to have to do with, did these people become mature believers? Did they become more like Christ? Did they grow in the identity of what it means to be a follower of Christ? Because in dying churches, what we find all the time is people who have only become less like Christ over time. And they're more angry, and they're more caught up in their own preferences, and they're less discipled in the Word and less ingrained and built on the foundation of the Word of God. And so there's a lot of hard work to be done there. And so the finish line has got to be maturity. That's the constant theme we see in Scripture. So talk about how to measure that. It is very hard to measure, but Brandon Moore on our team has done an excellent job of actually putting together some tools and resources that identify scripturally the ways to look at that and how to measure it. And there are some ways to look at that and objectively go, here's where we're at, here's where we're trying to go in growing in maturity of the identities that God has called us to be as family, together, as worshipers of Him, as missionaries sent by Him on the gospel foundations the church is supposed to be built on, of the gospel, scripture, and prayer, and how infused all of those are into the foundation of everything we do, and the three leadership structures of leadership, membership, and discipleship. And so in all of those things, we've got ways to measure that, and to make aim towards growing in maturity in each of those, because it's so easy to get caught up in the trap of it has to be about numeric growth. We want numeric growth.
Right. Well, so we think numeric growth is an indication of the other growth.
Yeah, it can be, but not always. I mean, I've got a story of our church actually, our replant that I led grew the fastest when it also grew the most in disunity and immaturity.
Oh.
Because we were in a diverse neighborhood, and we had a church split from another community that was a very homogenous community, came in and moved in, and a bunch of them came to our church. And so our numbers increased, our budget increased, but at the same time, they did not like the diversity of our neighborhood, and it created a lot of disunity, and there's a lot of immaturity. And it was actually when a lot of those people left that we became more mature, more on mission, and able to move forward to now be a stable church that's meeting the needs of that community and reaching the people in that community.
Wow.
Yeah.
Seems like a good time to push the MissionInsite resource that Church Matters has. I think we should go ahead and remind our people.
That is something you can go to on our CSBC website, Church Matters page. You can request a free demographic report on your community. It's so important to know who lives in your community, what the trends are. And then these assessments and other metrics that Jimbo is mentioning can be reached at
renewalmovement.com.
Renewalmovement.com.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Okay. There's a lot there. And what you'll find there, and that website's only been up recently, right?
Since February.
Since February.
Oh, wow.
So if you're listening to this podcast, you can be an early adopter of some of the best resources online. And where this stuff has come from, he's mentioned Brandon Moore and his team.
Yeah.
The things you will find at renewalmovement.com is stuff that has been worked on now for probably over a decade. Yeah. And it's been tweaked and worked across America.
Yeah.
So this is not like just one person's idea and opinion that you get off a blog somewhere.
Yeah.
This is stuff that has been proven, field tested, you might say, and it's connected with all the other resources that we're doing. So we're working on some stuff at CSBC, but guess what? We're going to be using that stuff.
Yeah.
So if you want to go ahead and get on the ball and get ahead of the game, go directly there and get it and start using it.
So you've been traveling all over the nation.
Yeah.
How does California stack up to the rest of your trainings?
I have had a blast in California. I feel like I've been over 2/3 of the state now, and by the end of this thing, I will have gone from San Diego up to Eureka, and it's been so good, including even illegally hopping a train on accident.
Oh yeah,
at some point in San Diego, and trying to get and see a little bit when we had an afternoon free, and not timing
intentionally did it illegally?
No, not time.
Oh, okay.
We didn't time everything right, and then it was like we had to catch this train, or we had an hour and a half wait, and it was actually on the way there and on the way back to where we were going. On the way there, some guy named Fun Chad, who runs a volleyball tournament where you wear onesies. Like we were asking him, how do we get tickets? Because we couldn't figure it out, and he sized me and Brandon up, and he goes, and he points at Brandon, and he goes, "You need to run over there." He looked at us both and knew out of the two of us, one of us might have the speed to get there. And Brandon got there, got the tickets, got back just in time. But then we were heading back. We got there so late that I was like, "Hey, is there any way to buy a ticket on the train?" And the guy goes, "No, but just go ahead and jump on." And he let us on the train. And so we were hobos in San Diego.
Right out the jump. I love it.
No, we've had a great time. California is doing a great job. We firmly believe at NAM that the best positioned entities for church revitalization for your church is your state convention and your local association. And we want to help. We want to be back end support. But we really feel like you need the local guy. You need your local association leader. You need your state convention. And so we see our role as a support to those guys because they live where you live. They know your context. They're probably not named Jimbo. And they are able to step in and really serve you best. And however we can help them is what we want to do.
And our executive director always says, our partnerships are so important because there are experts. And we're going to let the experts be the experts. And then we will come in with the California context, the relationships, and then develop for our pastors and our leaders.
And I don't want to pass over this too quickly. For all of our listeners out there, what's been going on, at least in our department over this last week, these events and these workshops and these trainings and these conferences, in the room has been local pastors, the local association, the state convention, and the national entity NAM, all working together. If you wonder why the CP giving is important, you are seeing it perfectly in those settings, because none of it would have been able to happen without CP giving or the partnerships and the entities all working together. And I know at times in our organization through the years and the decades, there wasn't always a synchronization between all these entities. But that is not the case these days.
Yeah.
It has come together. I thank God for the current leadership that has the right mindset of seeing how to make this stuff work. And it's not easy to make it work. There's so much autonomy and uniqueness to these entities that we shouldn't judge it too harshly on what's gone on in the past. But I can say they have figured it out now, and it is working. And I'll say this about the North American Mission Board and what Jimbo and them's doing. When they come in, they are bringing everything we ask, but they're not asking for anything in return. They're saying, take this, and you don't even have to use our name. You don't have to use our logo. You can literally cut and paste it and put all your own stuff on there and all this kind of stuff. And I'm bringing this up because you'll never know this unless I tell you, because when you see everything we're going to send you, you're not going to know I got it from Jimbo. I just appreciate that attitude because they know that for us to help our communities, we can't be, branded with something that is going to make no sense to our communities. We're going to be able to take it and make it relevant to our mission field. They understand that, and they are working with us that way, and it is so good. And I believe that's why we're making such good strides so quickly. This is the power of cooperation.
Yeah, I love it. And I really hope that California has been a resource to the North American Mission Board.
Absolutely.
As we're so diverse and we're working in a very unique context. We want to know that you're watching us because it's going to come to the rest of the nation as well. And so as you figure that out for us, you're helping other people in future years.
Yeah, we're learning a lot while we're here. And I would even tell you, every year at our National Replant Summit in August, we highlight a replanter of the year. And we've been doing that for, I want to say 6 or 7 years now. And at least 2 of those already have been out of California. There may or may not be a third coming soon.
You're teasing us?
I'm teasing you. And so Replant Summit is end of August. You go to replantsummit.com. And we've seen a lot of really great work happening in California. And so everywhere we go, we're not just trying to bring information. We're always learning.
Yeah.
We're always pulling and going. And we go meet with other states and we go, oh, man, yes, let me tell you what California's doing.
Yeah.
And we're able to share with that with other states. And it's one of my favorite things about the role that I'm in right now.
I love it. Well, thanks for being here, traveling across the country and having your misadventures already. But that wasn't the funny story, right? We still have a funny story?
I got a funny story. So here's what I'll tell you. To set it up, churches that are dying have this weird behavioral pattern. I love identifying patterns in behavior and organizations. It's just the way my brain's wired. I just watch and see these things. And I can't always figure out why they exist, but that they do exist. And here's one. I don't know exactly why. So just because you have a large amount of clutter does not mean you are a dying church.
Oh.
But if you are a dying church, you probably have a large amount of clutter.
Okay.
And you have storage rooms on storage rooms just full of random things that are not necessarily even valuable anymore. In particular in the South. I don't know how this plays out in California. In the South, it's flower rooms.
Yes.
Okay, is that a thing in
It
California?
is a thing. I've worked in those churches.
So what we often say is just because you have a flower room doesn't mean you're a dying church. But if you're a dying church, you probably have at least one flower room. Now, the church I replanted had 5 flower rooms.
Whoa.
And I got it down to 2. And so when people come and gave me a hard time about our 2, I'm like, you don't know the Vietnam Wars I've fought to go from 5 to 2. So just, we came to a treaty where we got. I filled 9 construction dumpsters full of things that had no value, right?
Yeah.
I may or may not have a picture of a senior adult lady dumpster diving just to ensure that I didn't throw away any flowers. But the key moment of trying to get rid of things that sticks out to my mind as a funny story is there was this. It was called the welcome room, but the door was closed and it was full of clutter. And so we were like, we gotta freshen this space up. We gotta get rid of the door. We gotta knock the corner out. We gotta, move this stuff out. Well, there was a pew in there that's the longest pew I've ever seen in my life. And I feel like they must have built the room around the pew because I had the battalion chief of the fire department with me. And if anybody knows how to get stuff out of a room,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
firemen, right?
For sure.
Yeah. Me and this battalion chief of the fire department are looking at this pew and we're like, there's no way to get this thing out of this room. And so he goes, I got an idea. He leaves the room. He comes back with a chainsaw.
Oh, no.
And so here we are chainsawing this pew in half.
No.
When this senior adult ladies group walks in.
Not the senior adult ladies.
Senior adult ladies walk in, and here he and I are going right through this pew, and you could watch their souls leave their bodies. Yes. They were so mad, so confused. And so I had to explain. I wanted to get it out another way, but the thing is, we were going to have to chainsaw it anyway, because even if I got it out, where do you put a 47-foot pew? Like, there's nowhere, no one's going to buy that. No one's going to, there's nowhere to put a 47-foot pew. So I often laugh at that moment where I got caught chainsawing a pew in half by the senior adult ladies group.
Oh, man. Did they ever come around, or were you enemy number one forever?
I mean, it depends on which of them you ask.
Okay. Oh, boy, yes. I thought you were going to say, when you said flower room, I thought you were going to say Christmas decoration room, because I've seen that one, too.
Yeah. That's a room. That's a room as well. And it's amazing the amount of stuff that churches will just accumulate and just store somewhere. I always say, it's really bad from personal experience when there's at least one storage room that even the pastor's not allowed a key to. You don't get to touch that room. And my encouragement would be, don't touch that room. Just leave it alone. Let those people die, and then you can do what you need to do.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. All right, everybody, check out your storage rooms. It's time to thin them out.
Maybe DR can add this to their chainsaw ministry.
Yes. DR will come and help you. That's funny. Thanks again for being here. Have a great time on the rest of your California tour.
Glad to do it.
Yeah, you're going to go see the big redwoods.
Yeah, we're headed to the Avenue of the Giants.
Yes.
And so we're super excited about that.
Yeah.
We do not have trees anywhere near that big in Florida. And so I'm super excited to see that.
Yeah. Well, safe travels. Thanks for listening, everybody. We have an email address, podcast@csbc.com. Thanks for listening. Bye.